What's going on, everybody? We're going to talk about something that has been highly debated in the world of fitness or resistance training, and that is what is the ideal rep speed for a given goal. By rep speed, just basically meaning how fast or how slow should you be doing your repetitions. Otherwise, this is known as time under tension or the tempo of a given set. So that's what I'll discuss in this workout, definitely within the confines and specifics of using a total gym and or a sliding bench trainer. Also within the specific confines of the goal of muscle hypertrophy, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The reason I want to do this video is because I've been getting a lot of questions. I have been getting questions in the past about what is this ideal rep range, or sorry, rep speed. But rep range actually does play a role in this, which I'll discuss. And even I've gotten some critiques from people who just say, even one recently that made me kind of think about doing this video, which is fine. Everyone's gonna have their own opinion about this, but someone basically commented saying that I'm going way too fast. I need to go slower in order to build muscle. I kind of touched on this in a few other videos, but again, I thought it warranted making a whole video dedicated to this. So I'll get into it. I'll give you guys some research, but I'll try and make it really simple, to the point and practical, because I know there's a lot of different people that watch this channel, but something practical you guys can take home and at least think about yourselves. I'll give you guys my own kind of personal insight and opinions a little bit, and as always, I'll put timestamps down below if you guys want to jump to a certain section. I'll put links in the description box for things I always use and recommend. But as always, if you guys like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. It's always immensely helpful. So before we get going, we have to be specific about the context we're discussing in this video. So we are talking about the total gym or sliding bench trainers. That's true, but we also are talking about a specific goal that I think pertains to 90+% of people, whether they know it or not. And that's going to be, what is the ideal rep range to elicit muscle hypertrophy? Because we could be talking about what's the ideal, rep speed. We could be talking about what is the ideal rep speed for eliciting strength, ideal rep speed for eliciting power output or muscular endurance, whatever. We're talking about muscle hypertrophy. Most of you guys don't know what that is. If you don't know what that means, it basically just means how to enlarge your muscles. So the goal of, if you have a goal of toning, building lean muscle mass, essentially having more visible muscle tissue, your goal is going to be around muscle hypertrophy. Now, definitely, diet plays a role in all these things, but muscular hypertrophy is what we're going to be focusing in on the context of this. To further kind of build upon where I'm coming from, you guys, I have to just give you a little bit of background about my experience with tempo training or just time under tension, because to be honest, I'm still kind of emotionally scarred from even looking at that, because back in the day in the early 2000s when I was first kind of starting at my very first personal training job was at this studio, and it was a great studio with a well-respected studio. I wasn't even getting paid at the time, but I was under some industry kind of personal training veterans, and these guys were obsessed with time under tension, because that was kind of the in thing. In fact, there's still a lot of personal training certifications that have you guys calculate tempo and talk about tempo. It's still a good variable, don't get me wrong, but I think it was more popular then. And what I had to do before I was even getting to paid clients was I had to make my kind of fake program design, and I had to calculate the exact time it would take to complete one rep, and then therefore one set, and then one whole workout. By that I mean, like, the tempo is being like, let's say, count how many seconds it takes to go up on the concentric, how many seconds are you going to pause in the isometric, and then how many seconds are you going to go down. So let's say you do 3 seconds up, 1 second hold, then 3 seconds down. That would be a 3-1-3 tempo. So I had to calculate that, count it all out, and then, assume how long the workout would take. Which I understand why they're doing that. They're teaching me just kind of one extra variable, and teaching me maybe to kind of think about how long workouts would last, which is cool. But I very early on realized it was a really cumbersome way of approaching training. At least I thought. We even had a person at the studio who was like a time under tension guru. He was like, he would give workouts. We would just hold one weight, and the whole thing was just manipulated by counting in seconds. And you get a great workout, don't get me wrong, your muscles would be burning, they'd be on fire. But even early on then I realized, it's not something I really thought I'd be eliciting a lot of gains from. Not to say you couldn't, but it was just something I really wasn't too into as far as taking this really slowed approach to resistance training. And that's one extreme of the spectrum. But that's essentially where I was coming from. Once I kind of did that, I was around that, but I really didn't want to have much to do with tempo other than maybe practically using it, telling someone to slow down or speed up a little bit. That's kind of where I was personally coming from. Now, to kind of talk about what the research is showing with regards to what's the ideal rep speed with muscular hypertrophy, and I will tie us back in with the total gym towards the end in case you guys are just wondering. So one of, if not the most cited experts who's always kind of gets brought up when we start talking about rep speed and tempo or really just muscular hypertrophy, is Dr. Brad Schoenfeld. He wrote an excellent book that I believe there's a second edition out. I had the first edition. I don't have it anymore. I gotta get the second edition. But if you guys are really interested, I will link this book down below. I will link this article we're going to talk about here as well, which is an excerpt from this book. But the book is called The Science and Development of Muscle Hypertrophy. Excellent book. He's a go-to resource. I had the luxury of seeing him. I've definitely seen him at many conferences. I think I've seen him talk at least twice or three times. And in every discussion, when we talk about muscle hypertrophy, he kind of gets like, what do we know as of now with regards to the science? Inevitably, he'll talk about rep ranges, but definitely, rep speed as well. So here is an excerpt from that book, which I was lucky to find. So if you guys want to check it out and get right to, the nitty gritty or the specific topic at hand, you guys can check it out. So this article snippet is there an ideal time under tension to maximize muscle growth? I'm not going to read this whole article for you. I'll kind of point out a couple things. He basically starts the article just saying that there's been a debate about in various research that kind of says a couple different things. Should you go faster? Should you go slower? And right down here, I'll highlight and I'll read this part first. Despite the objective evidence, a logical case can be made that time under tension does play a role in hypertrophy. However, it appears the effects are more related to the time a muscle is worked over the duration of a training session than to the time under tension for a given set. All right, so kind of keep that in the back of your head. That's a kind of a key point right there. Basically, what he's saying is it's not so much the exact speed you're under that one set. It's, again, the total duration that muscle is being placed under set in a given training session. And then just jumping down here to the conclusion here, again, kind of reiterating some of the same points. All things considered, evidence indicates that time under tension plays a role in muscle hypertrophy. However, its implications must be considered in the context of the resistance training variables comprising a given routine, rep range, tempo of eccentric versus concentric. Within limits, it appears that total time under tension accumulated for a muscle group in a given session or perhaps over time has the most relevance from a muscle growth standpoint. So I'm going to kind of sum that up here in a second, because really this is kind of what the consensus is as of right now. And he's kind of extrapolated this further, not just that it's the total work on the muscle, but even things like rep ranges, because rep ranges, traditional hypertrophy rep ranges were always like 8 to 12. He's gone on to say many times that 8 to 12 is a nice little average, but you can get muscle hypertrophy in the rep range a little bit lower than that. You can get rep ranges, muscle hypertrophy in rep ranges a lot higher than that. That would traditionally be called muscular endurance, like 20 plus reps. So there's a nice range here of developing a rep ranges, nice range to actually develop muscle hypertrophy. The same thing goes with muscle speed and rep speed. Or rep speed. And so what we're kind of getting at is the take-home message is overall stress to the muscle, basically. All right, so breaking this down, another example that I think I know I've used, other people have used it. This isn't my analogy I'm thinking of, but I think it's the best analogy with regards to muscle building, but definitely it's relatable to rep ranges as well, is that if I was going to tell the body to develop a callus on my hand, whether it was from lifting weights like around here or on the fingertips from like playing guitar or whatever, would the speed of the stress to that area of the body really make a difference? I mean, if I just like, let's say if I had something abrasive surface, if I had that abrasive surface, would I develop a callus faster if I did it super fast? Or would I develop a callus faster if I did it like kind of slow? It really, as you guys would probably already kind of intuitively know, well, how long are you doing that? I can go super fast, but for 3 seconds, or am I going slow for, 5 minutes? The point is, it's the accumulated stress on that area that's the signal to the body to adapt to that stimulus or stress that you're giving and placing upon it. That's no different than building lean muscle tissue. So yes, there might be maybe in a percentage difference, objective difference, where one might be superior than other as far as like speed. But at the end of the day, what is signaling muscle growth is, you could say, consistency to make it really simple, but really it's just stressing the muscle consistency for a given period of time that elicits a response, which is going to be something I'll kind of finalize later. It's something I've kind of mentioned before that is ultimately really important. It was something I addressed in a video, which I said was like 5 total gym mistakes that people are making. It comes down to the exact same thing, but with regards to rep range, the point is a lot of these rep ranges, fast or slow, can benefit muscle growth But the point is, the big thing is, what's the overall length of time the muscles are being exposed to that tension? And for sure, we could say, I mean, I know that it's definitely a variable to use. I'm not saying not to use it. There are, I mean, you guys might catch it in some videos. For majority of the time, I'd say my tempo is kind of like moderate. But what I'm ultimately focusing on when I'm doing these exercises, as I said many times, is kind of feeling. I want my muscles to kind of feel that tension. And that varies on exercise to exercise, on position, on the type of resistance I have. For sure, and you guys know this, I mean, if I just do like, if I'm doing a lot of bench pressing type exercises, eventually if I go super slow and try and go like really tiring after a while, or I'm starting to kind of fade out, I don't start to feel it in my chest anymore. I start to now feel it in my deltoids and maybe my triceps. Somewhere else is going to be taken over. And that might be a good thing to kind of work some of those muscles, and you might work some new muscles you haven't really necessarily stressed before out of necessity because you've been going slower. Conversely, you might do something else if you're going faster. So there's definitely a value of just mixing it up. So I definitely agree with that, that you might turn on some other muscles by going slower. And like I said, vice versa for going faster as well. Now, relating it back to the Total Gym specifically, the Total Gym being this unique fixed machine that it's, you know, essentially more or less fixed as an incline, and you're doing creative movements and exercises around the confines of this machine. You guys know that there's certain exercises, certain muscle groups that can be hit or target a muscle area better than others. The easy example is, again, the legs. I mean, if I do a lower body exercise, you can definitely stress and work the legs. Sometimes you have to be creative with your tempo. You have to do a lot more repetitions. That's just repetitions, but you might have to maybe you want to do a lot of fast stuff, maybe some jump squats on here, and then go into some pause squats. Maybe do some single leg stuff at a slow intensity. So it really depends on the exercise itself that we're kind of talking about with the Total Gym. And then also not to mention that, given, like I said, the confines of the machine, if I've done this before that, and I'll show you guys in this video, hopefully I'll cue it up on a recent workout to kind of show you guys that if I'm doing like a tempo speed on a chest press, like the Total Gym chest press, if I try and go up really slow and fix at the top, it's a different type of tension that I would get at the very top or the isometric hold of that position than if I was doing a bench press with that kind of time under tension hold. Because at the top of the Total Gym, it just, without kind of describing it, you know, I'm not going to describe it the best way, but if you guys do it, you'll see what I mean. It's just different. The way that kind of the cable is kind of pushing and creating tension, I don't feel like that direct tension here. It's just a little bit different. Even the way you kind of lock out is different, which is why I've said this before. Sometimes I like kind of doing these partial repetitions to kind of keep that tension on my chest. The point being is that the machine is unique. Therefore, you know, might not get the same kind of time under tension result you got in the exact same muscle group that was a similar exercise, I guess what I'm trying to get at. Basic takeaway that I would tell people to kind of keep in their mind with regards to tempo and speed is, you know, one, for sure, try different things, go faster, go slower. I think that especially with something like a Total Gym, it definitely warrants itself to do that, because you're trying to, there's a million variables, as I said, and with this one machine, even though it seems kind of limited, there's a lot of things you can change up. So rep speed is going to be one of those things I would highly encourage you guys to change up from time to time. How do you know when to change it up? I would say change it up when you're no longer feeling it in the muscle. Never just go through the movements. Not saying you're always going to be feeling this, you know, constant stress, it's always going to feel like just awesome every time, but you have to you don't just do things for the sake of doing things. I said that in one of the 5 Total Gym mistakes. Don't just kind of go through the motions. Like if you read a program, maybe something of mine or something online where it says like do 5 sets of, you know, 10 reps. Don't just do the sets and stop. If you feel like you didn't get that stress to the muscle, you know, do more, add more intensity, whatever you got to do. The last thing you want to do is just kind of do the status quo that's fit for somebody else that doesn't apply to you. One of the biggest lessons I learned, and I think I said that early on, and this was in one of the mistakes, which kind of relates to that, is if people aren't seeing progress in the machine, odds are they're really just probably not doing enough work. However you want to say that, is volume or ultimately stress. That's kind of what the crux of that article was, that if you want to elicit growth in the muscle, you have to give it a reason to grow. So you have to be creative on eliciting that reason. But one of the things I learned early on was, I think I gave this example when I was first starting to work out, I was kind of following to the T what these back in the day the bodybuilding magazines were saying, and I was seeing some results, but my results changed when I started working out with somebody else who was doing a lot more volume, pushing yourself a little bit more so in the volume department, just doing a lot more work. Point is, mix it up, stress your muscles enough that works for you. You got to find that sweet spot. Obviously you can do too much, but doing too little isn't going to work out either. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is try fast stuff, try slow stuff. Don't stress yourself out about it. I think rep speed is a great variable. It's something to mess around with. But my point is, just do what works for you. And you just kind of find unique ways to stress your muscle. That's all I'll say. Kind of a rambly video, guys, but hopefully you get the message. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.